And if you live in or around New York City, you know the talk of the town often is about crime, in part because the media, particularly the local media, covers some of the horrific instances we've had on the subway and elsewhere, a lot of shootings as well. So Bloomberg took a deep look into whether, in fact, that's justified by the numbers. It's something called a big take on the Bloomberg, which is really worth reading. And to bring it to us, at least to introduce us to it, we welcome now Shelly Banjo. She's Bloomberg New York Bureau Chief. Shelly, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
A really interesting piece because it really does what Bloomberg does. Say, okay, a lot of people are talking about it. What do the numbers show? What do the numbers show?
Right. So that's where we started from. What does the data actually show here? And the data confirms the truth, which is that crime has gone up during the pandemic across the board, homicides, assaults, that kind of thing. But that the fear and the perception of crime far outstrips and outweighs how much the actual crime numbers have gone up.
Well, particularly if you look historically, right? I mean, you took a look at it particularly per thousand or per 100,000. And actually, historically, it's sort of toward the low end of the spectrum, I think.
We're still at decades lows. So, if you look at the 1980s and the 1990s, you're all the way up here where there's like 6 murders a day at that time, when it really felt dangerous to be in the city. That went all the way down to less than 1 murder a day before the pandemic. That's slightly climbed up now. And so it feels big because for a lot of people in their generation, they've never seen crime go up, ever. And so for the first time, crime's going up, and people don't really know how to feel or what to do about that.
Those of us in the media like self-flagellation in general, and I wonder how much of this is because of the media, because particularly as you watch local news here, there's a lot of crime coverage.
So the reporter on this piece, Full Akinimbi, came to me and said, I really, Adams is talking so much about crime. Is that because there's more crime, or is he talking more about crime? And I said, let's go find some data and see if we can actually prove that. So we look at digital and print media over the last 8 years. So we look over de Blasio's tenure, and we look since Adams started running for mayor, and then since he was elected. During the 8 years of de Blasio's tenure, there was about 132 articles a month about crime in New York City. Once Adams gets elected, that shoots up to 800 articles a month.
Wow, that's stunning. And in the meantime, he's sort of paying for it in the polls, as I understand it. The approval rating for him has gone down.
That's right. And so when he first got to office, the approval rating was high. Now it's around 29%. And some of that, is a little bit self-inflicted, because he came and he ran and he got elected on a promise to fight crime. But crime is not something that gets fixed in your first 6 months. So here we are, 6 months later, crime is, come down a little bit, but still not as low as people would like. And so he's getting dinged for it.
They say misery loves company. How are the cities around the rest of the country doing?
So that is a really good question. And I wanted to know, how does New York compare? So in the U.S., it's the same story in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Washington, D.C. We're still at decades-long lows, but it's still an increase in crime since the pandemic. Now, in the U.S., a lot of it is gun violence. If you go out of the U.S., where there are way fewer guns, a similar trend is manifesting in places like London, but with things like stabbings and assaults.